Hi, I'm Emilia.
And I'm Yvonne. Together, we wrote a book on female friendships, and boy, do we have questions.
We're here to continue the conversation and help women to navigate, cultivate, and celebrate female friendships.
This is Girl Friendships.
Hello, everyone. And guess what? Today is a sunny September day outside, and I think you might have missed us, right? We needed to take a little hiatus to just restore body and mind. And all of us here are blooming in different ways. You know. Welcome back to this episode of Girl Friendships. Emilia, do you want to say anything to our waiting guests?
Yes, thank you so much for listening. I'm excited for today's topic because I think that depending on the stage where you're at in life, this can be really important. Perhaps one of the things that drew you to our podcast was that you want to become more intentional about bringing friendships and cultivating friendships in your life. And so today's episode is all about making new friends. How to
Whoa, for September.
Yeah.
Starting a new school year. Do you always feel like in September, like you need to get started with stuff? I always feel this like anxiety rush, like, oh, I'm supposed to be at school. No, I'm supposed to start a new job. No. That's what I did for working in academia for so many years. Yeah, September was always your big new year.
Well, the second part of the year I guess depending on how you break out your year, whether it's in quarters or thirds. But this part of the year for me is always very reflective, and it definitely has like a strong energy at the same time of like starting new things. So I definitely agree.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about making new friends. Now,
yeah,
I must confess, I'm going to confess what is legal on this podcast. But I must confess, when we start to talk about this topic, I'm going, making new friends. I do not want any more friends because friendships take maintenance, and I'm going, I am not looking for friends. And I'm thinking, well, does that mean I'm not open? So if you ask me, I'm saying I'm good. I don't need any more friends. I have my little posse and I'm invested in keeping those. But there are a few people I've met who are kind of moving into that vicinity without my plea encroaching on that turf of friends. Like, maybe it goes with seasons then. Maybe at this season I'm not looking for friendship, but if you meet somebody who's nice, it's like, you go out to eat, you're not necessarily looking to eat anything, but somebody says, oh, try this restaurant. You try it and the food is really good and you kind of go, oh, I'm going to keep coming back here. Well, sometimes friends creep up on you like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I've moved them yet to the category of, best friends and whatever. But yeah, some people have, without my permission are encroaching in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not too upset about it.
Yeah. And what's so interesting too is I'm very extroverted, and, for the last decade and a half, I think that making new friends has been important to me for different reasons. I moved around a bunch for different reasons. I got a job in Ottawa at one point, and I spent 3.5 years there. And I didn't know anyone in Ottawa when I got there. So, with those changes in my life, I had to make new friends. So, I went to university in Waterloo, and then I moved to London, then I moved to Ottawa. And then from Ottawa, I moved downtown Toronto, and then that sort of brought some old friendships back to the surface. So, yeah, I think for a lot of different reasons, I've spent, a good majority of the last, decade and a half focused on making friends and thinking about, the new friendships that I wanted to bring into my life. And then,
so you were intentional because you're in a new space. You went with the expectation that you were going to be making new friends.
Yes, exactly. That it was something that I wanted to do and develop. What's interesting too is technically, I got the job in Ottawa and I was looking at Ottawa to move there because of a romantic relationship. But I really didn't want to build my social circle around my romantic partner. I wanted to have my own social circle and my own, especially, I was in the nonprofit sector at the time, and I wanted to meet other people in nonprofit. So, so that's kind of how it started. And then now in the last 5 years that I've been an entrepreneur, I've also been very intentional about wanting to meet other entrepreneurs and learn from them.
But I'm sorry, but why do you need to meet new people?
That is a great question. That is a great question. Well, because when you're in another city from some of your longtime friends, you want to go to brunch or you want to go and do things, and you don't have those people close by. So sure, of course, you take trips to see each other, but you don't have those people there every single Saturday or Sunday.
Well, that makes sense because you're in a new place and your regular posse, they're not around. I mean, I'm the introvert, so I'm pretty okay with my space for a long time.
Yes.
Occasionally, I will kind of creep out and then say, okay, I need to be connected to community. But I can't say I would go out saying I'm going to seek friends. I'm going to try to connect with people. But friendship was never my aim.
I definitely see the distinction there. I think that the distinction perhaps is you see and talk to those people within a certain context, but you don't try to bring them in closer into your life. So for instance, great example, I went to a yoga class, I met some women, and at the end it was like, oh, okay, well, I'll see you at the next yoga class, right? So you're not trying to go and grab a coffee. So I think that distinction between making new friends and kind of entering or enjoying a community, that's the difference. Like you're only seeing them in that context.
Yeah. But, okay, maybe Jessica, because I'm thinking it must be an age thing, or maybe it's an extroversion thing. Jess, well, are you looking? Because, you talked, I think, in previous episode about you've got these entrenched friends that you've had for a long time. And the newer friends that you have, did you go out looking for them or did they just find you?
I never looked for any.
You didn't look for them.
Did not look for a single one. Basically, either we met through other mutual friends or I was getting a service done by them, and we found out through conversation that we had a lot of things in common, so then our relationship expanded more than just a service provider relationship. So that's part of some of them, but others literally, like, there's a ton of people now that, I know a creator, they know another creator or the same creator, and they're like, hey, we're doing something, and then we meet and we're both like, oh, you're cool, so are you, one's hey, true north, let's
So it's discovering commonalities and, you're on the same vibe.
Just like, for example, one of my friends, the one that I was supposed to go to the Janae concert with, we actually didn't meet in person for 2 years before we met, because we met through a creator class. But by the time COVID hit, the class had turned virtual. So we just added each other on social media. And then one day we just saw each other at a concert and we're like, oh, hi, it's you. And then started talking, realized not only do we have a ton of stuff in common, our families are both Caribbean, we also live in the same neighborhood, kind of. So she's literally 10 minutes away from me. So once we found that out, it just became easier. So she could reach out and say, hey, I have a shoot. Could you come spot me? Or something like that.
So then that ended up fitting in a bunch of the things we talked about, the people we become friends with, proximity we talked about being a factor, having things in common, similar interests, that kind of stuff, and having values that align. These are the things that draw us to people and keep us, I want to get to know you better. So maybe I'm still curious, Emilia, because walk us through what you would do to make a new friend. Because Jess and I are saying we don't go looking for it. It's more like as a happenstance.
Yes.
In your case, you're more intentional. So what would you do, or what would you suggest to somebody who's looking? Let's say you've relocated, or you've broken up after our last episode. You've broken up with that friend, and now you need some new people in your life. What would you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So,
I have great questions.
Yeah, always. But I think the number one thing is when you set that intention to make new friends, you start to see more opportunities to do that. So I think the first thing is just getting clear on the fact, hey, I want to bring some more friends into my life, whether, you've started your own business and you want to meet other entrepreneurs, or whether you've moved to a new city, or whether, maybe you and the friends that you've had for a long time, like maybe you have less in common, or your schedules are off, or whatever the case may be. So first, setting that intention can help you see those opportunities to meet people. And from there, what I would say is it's really interesting because the pandemic could have been very hard for me because I'm such a social person. But I really found ways to meet new people, have a community, have friendships. So one of the things that I would suggest to people is a co-working space. Even if you work a regular 9 to 5, like if you can, take a day where you're working from home and just go into a co-working space. There are some spaces that are very, and I would count co-working spaces into that, where people are kind of more open to meeting because that's why they're there. So the difference for me between, just going to a coffee shop and grabbing coffee or going to a co-working space is people are at that co-working space often, not always, because they're hoping to, start an interesting conversation with somebody, learn something, make a connection. So doing something like that could be a really good step to see just who you chat with, by the coffee machine.
Might not be as intimidating for us introverts, even though as you're talking about it, I'm going, why would I?
Yeah, and a lot of co-working spaces, they have day passes. So I just wanted to say that you don't have to necessarily commit to frequenting a place just because you want to go and meet somebody. Or another thing is co-working spaces can have events. And when they have events, that's a great time to meet people. So just, get on an email list for a co-working space and stay on top of what kind of events they have.
Okay, so let me interject. First of all, maybe we should tell people, just in case you don't know what a co-working space is and kind of how it works, and like how would you become part of it?
Yeah. So a co-working space is essentially a place where you can rent a desk or an office, either for the day or on a more frequent basis. And
so it's a physical work.
So it's a
virtual.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you ask that because I'm also part of some online co-working spaces that popped up.
You're just a people can.
There is some virtual co-working spaces that have popped up since the pandemic. And if you're curious about that, there's one place I definitely recommend, virtually. It's High Vibe Co-work. And the way it works is, we meet on Mondays to go over our goals for the week, but there's also a coffee chat before that. And so during the coffee chat, you can kind of get to know people, and which is always really fun. And then, the second part of the call on Monday is actually talking about what you want to get done for that week. And then on Friday, we'd have a second call to kind of talk about, okay, what did we get done? Did we move the needle on our goals? Did this week go as planned? Did we learn a lesson? So it's also been really, really fun. And yeah. Well, it's been great too because I enjoy working from home, but I enjoy social interaction. So, I go to physical co-working spaces sometimes, but sometimes the process for me can be a lot. Like the reason I work for myself and work from home now is because I don't like packing a lunch and I don't like having to think of an elaborate outfit. And when I say elaborate, I mean pants and a top. No, I'm kidding. So sometimes going into a physical space can just be daunting. I always just kind of put it off and stay in my own little zone. But the virtual co-working has been really fun way to meet new people. And it's, I don't have to leave my house. It's amazing.
So that's one way, co-working spaces.
Yep.
Another way you can make new friends, meetups. I had never gone on one.
Meetup.com is really cool because it's not a dating site. What they have is different interest groups. So let's say you really love tennis, or let's say you really love yoga, or you love books, or you love cats. Like there is a group on there for everybody. And so, you can join different groups and then they will post when they have events or get-togethers. And so you can go to those and, meet people. And the nice thing about it, I think, especially for introverts, but for extroverts as well, is that right away you have something in common with people, and you have things that you can talk about with them because you both love cats because you're part of a group for cat lovers or whatever the case may be. So that's another great.
Dog lovers shouldn't go there unless they also love cats.
Pretty much. I've once heard the term bipedal, which I thought was amazing.
You can love more than one animal.
Yes, you can love more than one animal. So don't be shy. No. So that's another great way. And I've actually met people like that in the past.
We've got co-working space,
meetup.com. And the other tip that I wanted to share is sometimes, so kind of going back to that idea about the intention, when you make that really clear in your mind, you can also take the opportunity, because very often we'll meet somebody, whether it's through a friend or whether it's an event or whatever the case may be. Maybe you go so far as to exchange contact information, but then you don't follow up on it, right? And I think it's just this fear of rejection, maybe both for asking for contact information and for actually following up on that. I think there can be a fear for that.
Like, if you're going to stop, then like, why are you asking? We just met. Why are you asking for my contact?
If they get really scared, they'll just give you like their Instagram or their email. It's not a big deal.
Well, that's it. This is kind of how we met. She stalked me. Yeah, it was a professional stalking, but it was still...
It was 100%. 100%.
And look at it. Here we are.
4 years later.
We wrote a book together. We've collaborated. We just finished eating Jamaican patties and cocoa bread. That was so good. Just got from the bakery. Anyways, I digress. But that was... I wouldn't have set out. This is a good example of me not looking for friends. I'm going to a conference. I'm going to do my presentation. Lots of people come up to me at the end of presentations and want to talk. I can't say any has... And people followed up, to say, I had questions about anything. But nobody came to me with a good pitch about a good...
I didn't even read the pitch, which is the funny part.
I followed up with you for your pitch. And then we discovered we had all these other things. Common. Look at that. So here's a good example. I was not looking for a friend, and I got one.
Yes.
That to me is a bonus. So there was never any pressure on me, but I was just open to, somebody's reached out, let me be friendly back.
Yes. And
I think there's something in that. So even if you're not the type to go seeking, just be open.
Yes.
To people who are good people, and, if they make the effort to drive to your place to come and talk to you about an idea, you could treat them for lunch or go take them for lunch. Like, reciprocity, kindness, that helps. And then that's when you discover. But it never felt from my part that there was any pressure or I was going outside my comfort zone.
No, that's really interesting that you bring that up. Yeah. So I think that's probably a good tip for those who are trying to make friends with introverts. Like, don't pressure them. Don't contact them too often. Don't make them go outside of their comfort zone. And noted. I'm a total extrovert. So I'm glad it all worked out, and my approach with it is impressive.
It was the idea, like, really, if you had said, well, I did some research on you and I discovered all these things about you and da-da-da-da-da-da, I'd be backing up. Literally, I'll be backing up. And going, who is this person? Like, right? But it came about on my own terms.
Yeah, that's really cool. And well, yeah, but I think you joke when you say it was a pitch, because it really was you asking me, like, what is this book that you want to write? And I don't think I had intended what I was saying as a pitch, and I don't think you were intending to take it as a pitch. It was just a spark of, inspiration or intuition, whatever you want to call it, where we both just felt like, oh, let's work on this. Like, you're excited about this topic.
You had ideas, and I'm going to say something I've never said.
What a scary thing.
Never did that.
I mean, it's funny though, because if you thought, like, if you knew back then that, writing the book was going to take us over 2 years, and
you over 2 years, I was done with that book. Jesus.
That's correct. That's plus, but
the extrovert. But once I make a decision, I expedite.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I think also, my lack of experience and knowing how hard it would be to get vulnerable and put my ideas on paper. I often joke that it's like you write one sentence and you're like, this is crap, no one's going to read this. You write a second sentence, this is crap, no one's going to read this. And it's just really hard to continue with that.
And if there's one in your head, just send me the crap.
Yeah. The crap. I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's exactly what it was like. But yeah, it's just really funny when you think back to a conversation that can, change the next 2 to 4 years of your life. Yeah.
And just being open to it. Sometimes we just close ourselves off. We could have closed ourselves off because something happened to hurt us. The last friendship breakup we had with our girlfriend.
Yeah.
That might have just, especially if you're an introvert and you kind of put your heart and everything into that person, it's harder to let somebody else in. So yeah, I would say I have tons of acquaintances. They're not all the people I would call friends. But they might call me a friend. And if I'm using the term friend casually, I would probably say they're friend groups.
Yes. Yeah. And kind of going back to what you said about, how you and I met, what I'd like to add there is I've been to many conferences where I had set the intention that I wanted to meet a friend and somebody that I would, hang out with. But this particular conference was not that for me. And I think what's important about, what I experienced is that I just had this intuition, this insight to say, hey, I need to go speak to the speaker. At the end of this session, I feel very inspired by what she said. I feel very motivated. I have this gut instinct, this intuition that I need to go and mention to her that I want to write a book. And so I think that's another good tip for people who want to make new friends or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. I think that it's really important when you get that hit of inspiration or when you get that hit from your intuition to follow it. Yeah. And I think that very often we talk ourselves out of it, once again, going back to this idea of the fear of rejection, because will say, oh, what if this speaker like doesn't want to talk to me? I've never spoken at a conference, or I don't have this, like I didn't just do a session that everybody loved, and who am I to speak to this person? So we can talk ourselves out of it, but I think it's so important to notice those hits and follow them.
I'm fascinated, and for our next episode, it's like a close cousin to this one. We're really going to dive deep really into the friendship experience from an introvert perspective. And this is where we're going to get Jessica to come in and to share all her wisdom and what the path is. I'm an older introvert. You're not an introvert at all.
I'm extremely extrovert. I've done a personality assessment that's based on the Big Five model. And one of them is about my level of extroversion. And the interesting thing about this assessment is that it's my scores are calculated based on a global norm group. And I'm like a 7.5 out of 10. And that's very extreme. Most people fall in the middle on that scale, like globally.
No, we know.
But I do have to say,
I take and have that after our visit.
Do what you got to do. But I will say that over the years, I am more comfortable with solitary time, and that's okay too.
And that's true. She is.
Yeah.
But first thing on a Monday morning, she's bouncing, and she's not in the physical room with me. Most of the planning for the Female Friendship Guide was done virtually.
Yeah,
and all the writing, and she was still bouncing virtually. So, with that said, hopefully you've learned some really good tips about making new friends from an extroverted point of view. Like, you're just going to go to a new place, decide you're going to reach out to people and do it. Maybe we should end with that story you had in the book about somebody who you met, and then you went to some event, and the person wasn't comfortable, but you end up meeting somebody else at the event. You don't even remember.
No, I think I know which story you're talking about. Is it the one with the funny outcome when I tried to make a friend?
Tell any listeners that story.
Yeah, so I went to an event and I met this woman, and I thought she was really fun to talk to. I really, enjoyed our chat and getting to know her. So by the end of the event, I asked her for her contact information, and she kind of like pushed it off and mentioned something about her boyfriend. So I'm pretty sure she thought I was trying to hit on her, but I wasn't. But at the end of the day, like, if that's the worst case scenario when you try to make a friend, it's like, that doesn't say anything negative about me whatsoever. Even if I was hitting on her, that wouldn't say anything negative about me, right? So, whatever perceptions or reactions other people have to you making a friend, I think, you can take it in stride. And hey, like, that was probably 10, 11 years ago. And I still think it's a really funny story, right? So at the worst case scenario, you'll get a really funny story out of it.
Right. I have many questions.
Yeah, many questions.
And they talked about it, and I'm going, so is there a way to do this? So, people are going up, because as soon as you say, can I have your contact details, I am backing up, like the introvert is me. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So we're going to morphing into our next one. But that's something I'm thinking, is there a way to say I'm new in town? I'm just looking to I probably would have done a preamble to that. So, anyway.
You're so methodical. I love it.
We are going to end right here. Friendship from making new friends from an extroverted point of view. But the introverted me is backing up in a lot of this.
Yeah.
See you next time. You've been listening to the Girl Friendships Podcast with Yvonne and
Emilia. Thanks for listening. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Leave a comment, please. to let us know your thoughts.
And come back next time for another episode of Girl Friendships.